How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.
My name is Jonathan Gillum.
And this is The Experts.
This is Jonathan Gillum, and this is The Experts on Facebook Live, Twitter, and YouTube. And as you can see, I've done a little trimming on my beard. That's all right. So tonight what we're going to do is we are going to talk about Mayor de Blasio, first of all, and the reality of what some politicians are doing, many politicians actually, are doing now in accordance with school safety, which is very odd. Also, In God We Trust is back in the schools in Arkansas, and it's got a lot of liberals and so-called First Amendment people up in arms. And also, we got to talk about this Austin bomber for a minute down in Texas. So let's go ahead and let's get started. All right, so let me bring up this article here. A couple people actually sent this to me today. That's how ridiculously stupid this is. I mean, I know when something is really tracking with the American public when I get multiple people sending me these the articles that have to do with the subject. And by and large, Mayor de Blasio, man, that guy is just absolutely I would have to say probably the worst mayor in the country now. I'm sure there's bad mayors out there, but this guy is a communist. This guy is, I know people say, all right, you know, everybody that is ultra liberal is considered a communist on this show, but that's not true. I have friends who are very liberal. I don't think they're communists. I think that they're caught up in the fact that they think they have to define themselves by either liberal or conservative. But this guy literally is a communist. I've talked about this ad nauseum. He's changed his name. He's on his third name now. He worked for the Nicaraguans that we were at war, the communist Nicaraguans that we were at war with back in the 80s. He went to Russia on his honeymoon. He's backed by the Communist Party of the United States. His parents were communist. I don't know how much more except for the fact that if he just simply called himself a communist, which he has called himself a communist. So you can't really get much more than that, folks. And so I think it's very important that we first acknowledge this. Whether you are a liberal or a conservative, we have to admit, or at least you should come to the conclusion that communism is a bad thing. Okay, a lot of people on the left, they won't talk about Antifa for whatever reason. They won't equate them being communist, but yet back in the days of the original Antifa, they were associated with the Communist Party. Yeah, they were going against the fascist Hitler, but the reality was that they were communist driven and communist sponsored, and it's no different today. So I think it's probably best that this country start to realize a few things. One, they need to start realizing that we need to pay very close attention to who we elect. We all know that. We all say it, but yet we all pick between the conservative, or it's really the Republican or the Democratic candidate that we're told to vote for. I'm seeing some of this stuff through Scott Eulinger's eyes as he runs now for Congress in Pennsylvania, in the 9th District of Pennsylvania. And so I'm seeing, you know, this is a real guy. Scott Eulinger's a real person. He's not some kind of chump to the Republican establishment. He's a real person. And it's interesting to see how this whole system works. But what I'm starting to see here is that in certain areas, very heavy political parts of the country, places where the people are really divided by Republican and Democrat, not people who are looking for what's most effective. You know, those are the places where these congressmen and congresswomen, senators get elected, and they cause real problems for the United States. Remember, just because somebody gets elected, say in New Hampshire, doesn't mean that they're not going to be a problem for the rest of the country, because they're not bringing up bills that are specifically best for New Hampshire. These are people who are going to bring up bills that they specifically want to utilize to change the country and go against the Constitution or to benefit their own pockets. So when we look at people like this knucklehead here in New York, this communist, Mayor de Blasio, you should ask yourself, what really is the narrative that people are following? And in the case of what Mayor de Blasio has done is he has removed, and I did some reading up on this today. I didn't even realize that all of the armed officers were removed in the 90s from the schools in New York City. Now, I found that very odd to begin with because that was when it was very dangerous. And I know that they had a string of bad mayors before Rudy Giuliani came along, and they've had kind of a string of bad mayors after Rudy Giuliani came along. But they had one last armed school safety officer at one of the most, if not the most populated school in New York City, and it's roughly 4,000 students populate this school every day. He is now gone. He was there for over 10 years or 12 years, something like that. He's now gone. He's been reassigned. And they, according to de Blasio's office and the NYPD, who is ran by somebody without a spine, O'Neill, who is, I didn't know that they could get worse than what they had before, but evidently he's pretty bad. And so he released a statement saying that they are going to have community policing officers that will be visiting the schools. And the people are supposed to feel good about that. Okay, they're going to have officers that visit the school. Yeah, that's great. I live just down the road from a hospital, but that doesn't make me feel any safer in my home. It doesn't make me feel like, okay, great, if I drop a knife and it goes into my foot and it hits an artery, oh, I'm gonna be much more better off because a hospital's close by. Unless there's a doctor that lives in my apartment with me, I'm going to be just as bad off as somebody who lives 30 miles away from a hospital, because if I can't get, it's New York City, I may not be able to get an ambulance here because of traffic. It's the same thing with the schools officers. Why they cut these people out of the schools in New York City of all places, I don't know, because, you go to rural America where there is maybe 500 people in an entire school. That goes from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade. Here in New York City, like in this school, there's 4,000 students there. And you're going to cut out the school safety officers that are armed? It just makes no sense. And to do it publicly right after Florida, it's almost as if he's putting up a bat signal for crazies to come and shoot up a school in New York City. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever to me. Now, before I continue on this, if you haven't shared this show, share it on your page on Facebook, retweet it on Twitter. I got to tell you, I may be a little bit paranoid. I don't know, but it's interesting. Over the past couple of weeks, I've been told that I've had some of my best shows ever, but yet over the past month, the reach of my show has gone from about 1 million pages over the past couple months, 1 million pages a night, down to about 3,000, which means Facebook is refusing to populate this show on with whatever algorithm it uses. Nothing has changed in the show. The number of views actually has increased quite considerably on Facebook and on Twitter. Yet at the same time this is happening, the reach has completely crashed down to about 3,000 during a show on Facebook. So we know that they're messing with us some way, shape, or form in the way that they're eliminating this show's ability to populate Facebook and the different news feeds. So make sure that you share it, tell people about it, get people to watch. Same thing on Twitter. So like my page on Twitter, @JGilliam_seal, and on Facebook at Jonathan T. Gilliam. Of course, if you're watching on Facebook, you know that. And then also over on YouTube, Jonathan T. Gilliam. So, okay, let's get back to de Blasio. I've been saying for the longest time de Blasio is a real problem for New York City. And that people, whether you're Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, gay, straight, black, white, whatever, you need to realize that people like this get elected, one, when people don't show up, when they don't do their research to find out the reality of who they're voting for, or they just don't show up and vote at all. In the case of de Blasio, in an area where 8 million people live, 800,000 showed up and voted for him. 600,000 showed up and voted for other candidates. That is absolutely ridiculous. And so the people of New York bear part of this burden. If children are killed in a school in New York City, the voters of New York City, some of that blood is on your hands. The fact that Mayor de Blasio, in a very public way, made sure everybody knows that they got rid of the last school's officer is almost like an invitation for crazies to come in and shoot up his school or these schools. Absolutely ridiculous. So let me go through exactly what was said here. Says that the school safety officer's position was eliminated because cops in Mayor de Blasio's new community policing units will visit schools while patrolling the neighborhood, according to the NYPD. School safety agents are stationed at all schools but are not armed. Now, as we can see, the useless sheriff's department down in Florida, also ran by a New Yorker, so they've got a terrible record so far when it comes to the New York liberals going around and spreading stupidity and incompetence around the country. Their school safety officer that was armed, the sheriff's deputy, did not do anything. And, in fact, the other deputies that showed up did not do anything as well. So we see what happens when you don't have school safety officers that are willing to engage in a situation. They didn't do it in Florida, and you saw what happened. The killing continued until 17 were injured, and a lot of people were physically injured. Hosts more were going to be impaired mentally because of what they saw. And then the creation of what's even just as dangerous is the quote unquote, I'm not calling them children, they call them children, the children of the Florida shooting who have shown no remorse, who know communist and socialistic rhetoric far better than some of the leftist politicians, but they're directly in line with what they're saying. We've now been exposed to them, and they've been pushed forward all because of this stuff happening down in Florida. And it's no different than up here in New York. If another shooting occurs here in New York, again, part of that responsibility is, well, I'd say a lot of that responsibility is going to be on Mayor de Blasio and the NYPD for not doing proper threat assessments, for not locking doors and putting up metal detectors and making sure that there are armed people there to deter any of these attackers from getting into the school. I don't know why it's so difficult for people to understand we must stop these people before they get into the school. I don't get it. I will say this. I hope that, I don't know if any of this stuff ever gets to President Trump, but man, I really hope it does, because today he said something that is unbelievable. He said that, they're backing up a little bit on this 21-year-old age restriction for people to be able to purchase a gun. I am very proud that he did that. They also stated, the White House also said that they are wanting to focus more on realistic solutions to stop school shooters. Now, I'm not going to say I'm responsible for all that because, I don't know. I'd like to think that I am, but I don't have any contact with the president of the White House. I only go on mainstream media, and I've been spouting that since the day this occurred, actually way long before that. That's why I wrote the book, as you see right here, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, because I'm trying to get people to realize you can say whatever you want about eliminating guns. It's not going to stop terrorists. It's not going to stop crazy people. It's not going to stop bad people from getting guns. And although I know a lot of the people that are friends with me and that are on my personal pages and stuff, and they have big hearts, but they're very liberal, they believe that in order to do something, you must get rid of the ability to have AR-15s, and that'll solve so much stuff. It's not going to solve anything. It's really not. And people that want to kill are going to kill. Virginia Tech was done with pistols. Columbine was done with shotgun. So it's not going to stop the mass killings. The governor of Kentucky would love to have him on this show. Anybody knows him? Let's get him on this show. What an amazing guy. I don't want to take the chance of playing the video because I don't want it to be this show to be pulled down, but that guy gets it. He gets it. And there was a shooting there in a couple months ago, I believe, or I don't know when it was actually. He said it was a couple months ago. That could have been an old video, but he said it occurred in Kentucky, and we didn't hear hardly anything about it. They didn't blow it up in the media, and he understands that eliminating the guns and the Second Amendment is not going to do any good. It's not going to do any good to stop this stuff. So my hat's off to that guy. Now, I guess what the only other thing I'm going to say about this is that my next thing I'm going to talk about with In God We Trust back in the schools in Arkansas, my home state, is that and when I'm going to talk about there, they have been saying, whenever they report this stuff, they say First Amendment groups, or in the case of the Second Amendment, they say gun rights activists, or different whatever Second Amendment activists. The reality is the majority of these people that are talking about First Amendment activists when it comes to the separation of church and state, they are not focused on what the founding fathers had intended with the First Amendment in the separation of church and state. What they had meant was that you shall not be infringed on your religious beliefs, and that the government shall not impose a religion upon you. Now, just because a school has government funds, or it's a public school, or because there's a government building, it never said anything about facilities having anything about religion in them, that people couldn't express their religions in a public place or a public building. There's nothing in there about that. It is simply saying that the government cannot push not just push a religion on you, but force you to worship a specific religion. It just cannot happen. And you see how these things get twisted. Most of the time, it's because, listen, there's a lot of rich people who are really weird in this country, and they love to spend their money on stuff like this. So you have a lot of atheists that are rich, a lot of rich perverts in this world, and they will love, and a lot of rich communists and globalists, and they love to spend their money, hire big attorneys, and go after anything that they deem is not in their best interest. Not the best interest of the world, but in their best interest. And that's what they do. They go and they try to crush these things. They make up lies. They get people who don't do their homework to believe these lies, and that's why we get people like de Blasio as mayor, because the main reason why de Blasio is elected is because he's elected by activists. And yeah, I would say that there's at least 800,000 activists in and around New York City. Sure, different activists, different particulars about what they're focused on, but all of them are very left-leaning, far left-leaning. So you see how they have the ability to organize. They have the ability to create action. Because they plan these things, they rehearse these things. That's how when you decide to do something as a group, you take action. But as you can see on the right, that's not the case. Again, we don't organize, we don't discuss things, we don't have dialogue, and when it comes to anger, we all have a responsive, I'm angry about this, but nobody knows what to do. I was looking at I'd brought this up before, but I found this picture on my phone. This is one of my old phones. Now it's going to take me a second to boot this phone up and pull up this picture, but there was a couple of years ago when de Blasio in his first term, when he first started stabbing cops in the back, basically, and the two cops were shot. I believe this is when it was. They were shot eating lunch one day here in New York City, and they were killed by a madman. And de Blasio, in his response, I don't remember exactly what it was. I don't remember if that was the time that he went on to Europe to protest some stuff. But nonetheless, as you can see, my phone's booting right now. I can't remember exactly what the issue was, but I got on Facebook. It was actually before I started this program, I believe. Maybe it was right as I started the program. But I told everybody we need to get, and I had a lot of friends on Facebook who were cops, and I said, you know, we all need to get together, and we need to put a protest together, and we need to go and let me send this over to my computer, and we need to go and come on, computer. One more. We need to go and protest this because the left is always protesting. So we need to go protest for a change. And, well, let me just send it here first. And I couldn't get, it's highly embarrassing when I tell this story, but it is what it is. And I'm going to make sure that you all hear it. There he goes. All right, let me pull it up here. Let me add this here. Remember, I'm my own producer. So give me just a second here. Doop, doop, doo. Stand by. All right. So there you go. Sad. It's a very sad story, but here I am all by myself in front of the mayor's mansion here in New York City, and nobody showed up. And I had been putting this out for a month. This wasn't something that I just did spontaneously, and I said, hey, let's get everybody together. All the cops, all the families, members, all these people, let's get them together, and we are going to go to the mayor's mansion here in New York City, and we're going to protest this mayor who's a communist. I announced this on the radio. I announced it on Facebook and Twitter, and I said we're going to go, and we're going to, and everybody was excited. A month in advance I talked about this. Let's get people together. Let's just go show up there. I don't care if it's a dozen people or 1,000, but let's go out there and show our support for law enforcement and that we don't believe he's doing the right thing. And there you go. There I am all by myself, nobody to my left and nobody to my right, just me, and I felt like a total and complete jackass. But now, here I am several years later, and let me look at what the date was on this picture here. Hold on. It is December 21st, 2014. Not long after my beloved dog Jesse had died, I decided to get everybody together and to go do this, and nobody showed up. So what does that show you? Well, it shows you that I do what I say I'm going to do. It also shows you that the right does not organize, that it is almost impossible to get people together to go out and take a Sunday afternoon after church to go out and stand for the right reasons. They'd rather sit on Twitter, which is not going to change anything, or sit on their couch or grumble when they're at work. But as you can see, this is what happens. No, it doesn't matter how cool your sunglasses are or how big your beard is. Most likely the right's not going to follow you. And so there I was, all by myself. So now I've been doing this for 2 years, getting more and more people to show up on a nightly basis, at least here. But you know, look, it is what it is. It is what it is. We got to get together, folks. We got to do this stuff and do it right, or else what is happening faster and faster in this country is going to be upon us, and there's going to be nothing that we can do. Now, before I go to my next story here, I want to give a shout out to James Brown, and he donated $1,000 to this show 2 days ago on Saturday, and I was shocked. I've had a couple of these donations this size, and I've mentioned everybody that's done it, and it's always remarkable to me to see that people believe in this show this much, this helps out tremendously. It helps me focus on what I have to focus on here to try to get this information to you versus, versus trying to go and be on television constantly and trying to push myself out on the radio and stuff. This allows me to fund this show, to focus on this, and to solely do this and try to promote the book for the safety of the American people, to do this show for the knowledge and understanding of the American people. I just can't thank James enough, and everybody who's donated. I don't care if it's $5 or $1,000. The fact that you take the time to go to the GoFundMe page, which you see right on the screen there, scrolling across, is I don't know. It's remarkable to me. It also shows me that people are sick and tired of what they're seeing on TV. As part of this show, I got to do my research. One of the things I do is I turn the TV on. I leave it on while I'm searching all the stuff online. And it's unbelievable, the narratives. As I'm looking at this stuff, I'm listening to what's happening. And some stuff is not mentioned on TV that I think it should be. And other times when it is mentioned, it's so spun, and the people that they have on there to discuss it are so divisive that nobody ever really dives into the story. They just put people on the TV that are going to argue so that people will get mad and won't tune out. That's all. Then nobody really actually solves or gets to the depth of the problem. They don't even, that's not even their focus. Their focus is just to get you to stay there and grumble about how much you hate this person or you think that person's good looking. That seems like to be the only thing. But on CNN, it's how much you hate Trump. So let's go to the A block now, and we'll discuss this In God We Trust posters now back in school in Arkansas. So I love this, that In God We Trust posters may to be displayed in Arkansas. This is my home state. And why do I love this so much? Well, so hundreds of posters with the national motto, In God We Trust, will soon be on display. This comes off of Fox News Insider. In some Arkansas public schools, despite the objections of atheist and First Amendment groups. See, there's that thing I was talking about where they try to say First Amendment groups. They try to equate that as people who support and defend the First Amendment, but you never really hear about them talking about anything except for, you can't talk about religion unless it's Islam. They allow that. So they'll try to eliminate any talk of Christianity or God. And then they also, so my mom just tuned in from Arkansas. I'm talking about the schools here in Arkansas, Mom, about the In God We Trust posters being displayed in Arkansas public schools. But with these First Amendment groups, they're never people who want to ensure that you have the ability to discuss what you want and not be infringed on your religion or your speech. It's always a particular part, like they do not want God in there. They don't care if you talk about lifestyles or sexuality or there's many other cases of crazy stuff being taught in schools. They don't care about that. It's not like they're trying to protect people. They're trying to eliminate stuff that makes a country strong, like a strong faith in God, strong family. They don't want to talk about those things. So they'll try to get away from that stuff. That's the truth about quote-unquote First Amendment groups. So Act 911 requires schools to display posters with the motto, along with the U.S. and Arkansas state flags, if they are donated. See, I love that. So in other words, the government doesn't buy them, but if they're donated, then they are required to display the posters with the motto and the U.S. and Arkansas state flags. The law says the posters may be displayed in each public elementary and secondary school classrooms, library, or public building in Arkansas that maintains using state money. State Rep Jim Dotson, Republican, who sponsored the bill that became Act 911, or 911, appeared at the Bentonville School Board February 19th. That's where, I believe Bentonville's where the headquarters of Walmart is at. One of my favorite store, or my favorite store in the world. Unfortunately, they have succumbed to complete leftist ideology in the upper echelons of Walmart. But Bentonville School Board's February 19th meeting to present 891 framed copies of the poster that had been donated to the school district by the American History and Heritage Foundation. The local American Legion Post raised approximately $1,500 for the frames, which were sold at a discount by Hobby Lobby. Way to go, Hobby Lobby. According to Dotson, he said posters are also being donated to other school districts in Northwest Arkansas. Not everyone is happy with the move, though. American Atheist, these freaking idiots, alleges that the posters violate the Establishment Clause of their First Amendment, while the Freedom from Religion Foundation says Act 911 uses the machinery of the state to promote Christianity. Yeah. As we can see, even if they were doing that's always a way to make a country just falter, right? Is when you promote Christianity. Yeah, that's the source of everything evil in this country. Give me a freaking break. This country needs a little bit more of God in their life. And as I've been saying for the longest time, everybody that I talk to in this country, as I've gone around and met different people, everyone I've met that's a Christian is always got a solid, these are people that don't just claim to be Christian. These are people that live a good Christian life, such as my mom and other people that watch this show. They don't, you don't see them trying to alter the Constitution. You see them wanting to live by the Constitution. You don't see them trying to change things to demean other people. Remember, we're not talking about people who claim to be a Christian and then, and then they live an alternative lifestyle and go do, I'm not talking about alternative as in gay, but I'm talking about they go do, stuff that is communist in nature or socialistic in nature. I'm not talking about those people. I'm not talking about the people like, that you'll see from New York that move down to Florida or from California move to Texas, and they say they're Christian, but yet the only people they vote for in elections are people who skirt the communistic line, people that are so focused on the color of somebody's skin that, that's you can't really see. If you took away some of these people that when you listen to them that are from Black Lives Matter and the KKK, if you just took away the specifics about the color that they're talking about and you just left that blank, people wouldn't be able to figure out which side they're on. They're all separatists. They're all jerks to the rest of the people in this country, and they all hate the Constitution and think it should work for their group and their group only, that their group is the strongest. They're all weird. So, the atheist ones are the ones that are the worst, though, because it's funny that these people argue more about the fact that God is not real than anybody else. And yet, if they truly didn't believe in God, why would they care what other people think? It just doesn't make any sense. And why would they care if other people were religious? As long as the state isn't forcing them to be religious. We have gotten into such a weird way in this country. So it's so crazy that what we are told is normal are these far extremes, and what actually is normal is we're told that those things are too judgmental, or they're racist or misogynist. The one woman who's running for Congress for Congress in Virginia, who decided to cut an AR-15 in half, ignorance of the law is no excuse, and what she doesn't realize is that she broke major laws when she did that. She's now being investigated by the ATF. I've read a story on this lady. So ridiculous that she says that she was getting death threats and misogynist tweets and commentary, she's making it sound like because you disagree with what she did, or people are saying, she should go to jail for cutting a weapon and changing the length of web, which is a federal offense. She did it live on camera on Facebook, I believe. She thinks that is basically some type of a misogynist ideology, when in fact it's not. It's no different. She's breaking the law. It's no different than if she went out and said, I'm going to shoplift today, I'm going to film it, and she went and did that. She's breaking the law. People say, you're a disgusting criminal. You're out there shoplifting. She would say, well, you're a misogynist for calling me disgusting. That's the kind of person this is. So I guess the whole theme of what I'm talking about here is that we have gotten in a position in this country, largely in part because we don't take action. We don't work together, regardless of whether you're conservative or liberal. We don't work together. We don't have dialogue. It's always got to be separate. It's always got to be focused on a candidate. It's got to be focused on an ideology or a narrative. We can't just focus on what's best for the country. Every freaking day I can find stories to talk about this, and it's absolutely mind-boggling ridiculous. Here's a fine example. Let's go to the B block, and I'm going to explain this real quick about the Austin bomber. So, the Austin bomber. All right, here's what's interesting. I heard on television that there's a possibility that this may be a hate crime because it may be focused on race. Okay. I went and looked up the story, and when you look up the story, this is what I found. That, let me think back here. Let me go back here. Remember, Austin is one of the most, it is the most liberal city in the South. It's definitely the most liberal city in Texas. So in Austin, somebody is placing packages on people's porches or their doorsteps, and people are getting the packages, taking them inside, and it's on a pressure switch, which means when they cut it open and relieve there's probably something that's pressed, and when they open the box, it's going to relieve that pressure, and it's called a pressure switch, and it's going to explode. Well, I guess today, a 75-year-old Hispanic woman opened a package that she found outside her home, which detonated. She was significantly injured. God bless her. Hope she's all right. But there were similarity to blasts earlier this month. Now, let's look at the guy that was killed on his porch. Same thing. After the explosion was reported around 7 a.m. Very similar neighborhood. So let's see. Name was not the guy's name was not released. Let me see here. Let me go. Let me pull up this other story here. So the three locations are in 16 miles of each other. One guy is black, and I believe one of a teenager also. Trying to look on here. An African-American and Hispanic residents. Okay, so 2 Hispanics and 1 African-American, 1 black person, and 2 Hispanic individuals. So they say that they're not sure, they're not ruling out that this is race-related. Okay, that is the first theory that I heard on television, was that this could be, and they're not ruling out, a hate crime based on race. Now, I have seen no evidence except for the fact that I'm sure that the bomb squad there has put together similarities of each bomb. The fact that it's in the same neighborhood within a 16-mile radius. The fact that the same type of switches were used. There's always going to be a footprint when you look at these different packages. in the way that they're built, the type of explosive that they use, because quite frankly, typically, if it's a non-military or intelligence operation, they're going to be limited to a certain type of explosive. That's why you get this type of a signature in how they're doing it, because they, quite frankly, that's what they know, that's what they're comfortable with, that's what they practice, and that's the only thing that they can get that explodes most likely. So they build the same type of package over and over again. That builds some type of a signature. And a lot of times, like Ted Kaczynski, the explosion may happen here, and then for years they may go away, and then they come back, do another one, and quite often, they still do what they're comfortable with, and there's going to be certain signatures in there. And then when they find them, they can piece all these things together. So in this case, they're saying that it's in the same 16-mile radius, that there are certain similarities to every single explosive used, so they can put those things together and say, yes, these are related. But I saw nothing in there that said they're targeting a specific race. I mean, for one thing, one guy's black and the other two were Hispanic. But that's what the news is going to immediately report, and that's what the discussion is being guided towards. Is this a race crime? I mean, nobody knows, but that's immediately what they are going to bring up, because the media is embedded with these activist type of people who want to keep the country divided. And remember, right now, there's already people spinning up saying, I know this is race related, I heard it on television, when there's no evidence saying that that's the case. So when I saw this story today, a couple things popped out. One, folks, don't pick up packages that aren't from somebody that you know. Look on there. If there's a package out there in front of your home, look at it. See if there's anything that can identify anybody that you know. Is any of your neighbors' names on there, where you could have gotten a package from somebody that should have gone next door? I mean, just take a second. If you see a package out there, you didn't order something, don't just pick it up and say, oh, listen, Santa Claus is not real. And even if he was, he doesn't deliver on any day but Christmas Eve, okay? So don't go picking up packages that just mysteriously arrive on your doorstep. That's the first thing. We don't live in a world where you can just simply go out and, and pick stuff up that just appears on your front porch. Be smart about it. And if there's 2 bombs going off in that neighborhood and you live in that neighborhood, don't pick up any other boxes, okay? If you see one on the sidewalk, don't touch it. If you're driving down the road and you see a box, don't pull over and go grab it. Don't pick one up that's on your porch, especially if you live in that 16-mile area. The other thing that jumped out at me, and so people need to be smarter. They need to wake up, take responsibility for their security, and think their way through the day. Don't just, package, pick up. Don't do that. So that's the first thing that popped out. The second thing is here. You guys want to hear something? I don't know if you can hear this or not. That's the sound of an 18-year-old Jack Russell drinking water. So that's my sound effects in the background. Thank you, Rico. Appreciate that. So the other thing that jumped out at me is what I've already been saying, is that the media and politicians will just immediately jump on something that's a narrative. Whether or not, I mean, look, I could say this. I could say I don't know anything about these people. But there have been situations in New Orleans, for instance, where they had a serial killer that turned out to be a gangbanger who was a drug dealer who was murdering this happened right after the hurricane went through there. He was going around murdering other drug dealers in horrific ways. So let's say that somebody could be involved in some kind of criminal behavior, and these people are somewhat related to the people. Maybe they're not the people, but maybe they're related to somebody, and they told them, listen, if you don't do what we tell you, we're going to start taking family members out. I don't know. But that narrative is just as plausible as saying that this is a hate crime. The point is, if it's a hate crime, good, let's investigate a hate crime. But the media has no idea. They have no understanding if that's the case. And so that's what they're going to report. And I don't care if the chief of police or sheriff said, we don't know if this is a hate crime. You know, what if it was all white people? You know, what if they were all Asian? Does that mean that are they still going to report that it's a possible hate crime? Probably not. Probably not. They're going to report things as long as they can get a rise out of people. That's why they will do the things that they do. That's why they say the things that they say. So don't fall for it. Listen, if you have not shared this on Facebook, share it right now. If you didn't retweet it yet, retweet it. And go ahead and go like my page, JGilliam_SEAL on Twitter. Of course, Jonathan T. Gilliam on Facebook and on YouTube. I hope tonight's show gave you some insight, you know, trying to look at these things differently than what they're reported. I see different parts of these stories, whereas everybody says, oh my gosh, there's a bomber in Austin. I see, and they say, oh, and it could be race related. What I see is there's a bomber, somebody's setting off bombs in Austin, Texas. People are repeatedly picking up packages, and I have a feeling that they're not checking to see who it's for or where it came from. They're just picking it up. And thirdly, there's narratives being spun up and people are just running with it. That's what I see when I watch the news. That's how I look at these stories. Now, one thing before we start the Truth Zone, tell everybody about Sheep No More, the Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. Here's the problem I'm running into already. I'm seeing this, is that school boards are not interested in doing threat assessments. I don't know why. They're blowing it off. They're saying it's not worth the money. The PTA, the Parent Teachers Association, who pays for a lot of these things, believe it or not, they're not interested because they literally, I've heard this from several people who've talked to people in different schools. They've said the likelihood of an attack ever happening at their school is slim to none. And so they don't want to spend the money on it. If you're a parent and you have a kid in one of these, in a school, you should be raising holy hell if they are not doing threat assessments on their school, and not just a threat assessment. You should be doing it. Yeah. Okay. This door is open. Yeah. You need to be looking at it from the attacker's point of view. That's where people like myself come in. That's where this book comes in handy. The other thing, whereas I was talking about, I know I'm being a little conspiratorial tonight, but like I was talking about Facebook, how they've killed the reach from 1 million pages a night to around 3,000 to 10,000 a night. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, my views have gone up, so I know that people are still tuning in, and I know people are sharing it, but the reach isn't out there. Also, the other thing, for the first time since my book has been out there, it has been, so there's, the way Amazon does it is they put you in categories. And so you'll see the jostling of the different books within those categories quite often. And what's interesting is all the books are jostling. They're not really moving, especially in the violence in society and safety and security, I think is the, let me look at what category that is. It is safety and first aid. So safety and first aid. So I have a thing that I can look at my book. It's a graph that in the author's link here on Amazon, and it shows how many books are selling at any particular time and what my rank is. And what's interesting is, for the first time since my book has been out, it went from close to 1,000 down all the way down to almost 5,000 in one day. Meanwhile, all the other books that I'm jostling with are not written by political commentators. It's written by other SEALs or Army people or cops. And so what's interesting is these books were jostling, and all of a sudden my book goes woof. And I look at the other books that I was in jostling with, and they're in the same place. Same numbers. Nothing's changed. I go look at Barnes & Noble. Nothing's changed. I'm in the same area where I was before on Barnes & Noble. But yet on Amazon, who is far left-leaning company, all of a sudden, my book goes from competing with these other books who have not changed to dropping to almost 5,000 in really just this afternoon. And I find that very, very odd. At the same time, and because I'm a conservative, because Sean Hannity wrote the foreword of the book. Other people don't have the luxury of having Sean Hannity write the foreword of the book. It's very interesting how Facebook is limiting my reach, how YouTube never populates this show, and how on Amazon the book went from way up here and it just dropped, absolutely dropped in a matter of less than 24 hours. So still number one in one category, but I don't know. It's very odd. The other thing I want to ask you guys is, if you have gotten this book, if you have read the book and you really like it, go to Amazon tonight. Go to the page where it's at. Just look up Sheep No More, Jonathan Gilliam on Amazon, and it'll come up, and write a review for the book, because we've gotten 168 reviews. All of them, majority of them are 5-star. But then you get ones today where this guy, Jeffrey Ward, is going around, not just on Amazon, but from place to place and giving the book a bad review. I don't know who this guy is, and but I know I've found him on several different pages giving the book a bad review. So just like everything else, I need people to step up to the plate that have read this, just like I asked for the GoFundMe donations. If you like the show, donate to the GoFundMe page. If you read the book, take a second and go give it a review on Amazon and Barnes & Noble if you've ordered it from there. That's it. I wanted to show this other video real quick before we go to the Truth Zone. Hold on one second here. I got to send it over to my computer. My mom's going to love this. And anybody that's been following this show for the years that I've had it, for 2 years, and it has been following me, know how much I love Rico. And this is right after Jesse passed away. And I don't have a picture of, if my mom's watching, she could text me a picture of Bonnie Sue real quick. This is, I'm going to show you a video of Rico in 2014. Remember, this dog was already 14 years old at this point. And let me put this up here. Hold on one second here. He's now 8. He'll be 18 June 18th. Let's see here. Let me pull it up. You're going to love this. All right, so here you go. There's Rico. Now he can barely walk because he's 18. But that's Bonnie Sue when she was a puppy. Let's see here. She is now a mammoth, a behemoth dog. That little black dog that you see there is now about 100 and, I don't know, 150 pounds even. She's Great Pyrenees and pit bull mix. And you can see Rico was not, he did not put up with anything at that point. 14 years old at this point. Ridiculous. So anyway, she's a giant now. That little dog that was picking on Rico literally is a giant. She is, gosh, she could stand with her paws right here and be, you know, up to here on me just about. So anyway, I figure you guys get a kick out of that. Let's go to the Truth Zone. All right. Well, I covered a lot today. That's okay. I guess the whole point of the matter is, folks, as always, is make sure that make sure you're taking part in this stuff. You see how when I look at the news, how I look at not just what's being reported, but I try to take a step back and look at the story. And if the law enforcement is not reporting that they know for sure the motivation of the attacker, why then would the media turn around and say that there's a possibility that it could be race related, just because the color of the skin of the people. We don't know the reality of who's doing this bombing. We don't know if they're involved in bad things or if they're targeting relatives. We don't know that. That's not been told to us. But yet these speculations will occur. It's no different than the schools in Arkansas, where they're going to have "In God We Trust" posters put up, and how these First Amendment groups and these atheist groups will go against that. They're not doing that because they fear for the safety of the country. They're doing that because they want to eliminate God from schools, God from society, and they just do not. They want to destroy patriotism because they equate that with nationalism, and they know that a country that has a nationalistic, proud understanding of their heritage, and in our case, it's individuals who are seeking freedom from tyranny. They know not just nationalistic view, but people who believe in what our founding fathers believed in. They know that that is a problem for communism and for socialism and for the leftist movement in this country. And they know, they absolutely understand fully what Yuri Bezmenov talked about when he defected from Russia as a propaganda specialist for the KGB, that if you eliminate God from the country, it's the first thing you should go after if you want to topple a country. You go after God and you eliminate God from society, from school, from families. Break down the family. You eliminate God from the family, you eliminate the family. You can't build a structure without a solid foundation. If your family is not built upon the foundation of God, it will crumble. And they know that. You must understand. I'm going to give you a warning. I give you this warning all the time. This country is faltering. There are states that are failed states in this country. California, Colorado, Texas is moving that way. I keep telling you, Texas, you better wake up. Florida is right there as well. Remember, history is populated with individuals who hated tyranny but were enslaved by it. It's populated by massive amounts of people who longed for freedom but did nothing. They did absolutely nothing to go out and get it because they refused to work together, because they were afraid. What you're seeing happen in this country right now is indoctrination of learned helplessness. Telling people that you either believe this way or you are a bad person. That if you believe in the Constitution, you're a bad person. We are being set up, folks, to give away our freedom. You better wake up. I'm Jonathan Gillum. My buddy Rico, 18-year-old Jack Russell's walking around. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. I'll see you tomorrow. How many of you are prepared for an incident like this? Get my new book, Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and I will teach you to think like an attacker so you can truly defend yourself. Don't just react, act. Available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. Sheep No More. Get it.